Hey everyone, James here, trying to do a bit of good. Today we're going to be talking about Mongoose's virtuals. So in front of me I have our server.js file that we've been working with in all our videos in the past, and it's doing the same thing. To our right we have the exec board of bits of good being displayed. But yeah, today we're going to be focusing on mainly the example of what happens if when I type in trying to get the full name of our users. So I'm going to use the specific example of myself. So find one, first name, James. And then we're going to refresh our page. Cool. I have gnomon displayed working in the background. So every time there's a save to our directory, it'll go directly and refresh my server. So cool. Right now we have myself as an object being displayed to the right, and if I want to get my full name, all I have to do is bit.firstname plus, let's try to make it nice here, I'll put a space, and bit.lastname. So cool. Now we have displayed my full name, and we're doing this at the front here at the server, rather than say doing it at the database or with Mongoose. So our goal right now is to split this large junky clunky piece of code and trying to do it with Mongoose. So I'm going to switch over to my schemas file now. So schemas looks a little bit different from last time. We no longer have our lessons model here, but instead we have a bit schema options and bit schema options in our schema. So the schema object will take two arguments now. First is the object where we just instantiate our actual model, while also dealing with our bit schema options, and we'll touch on that later. So first, I want to touch on actual virtuals and what virtuals are. Virtuals is. So let's create an actual virtual. So let's bit schema virtual equal to bit schema dot virtual, and then we're going to call this the full name, because right now we want our full name to be displayed. And with with virtuals, they have both a getter and a setter. So let's get the bit schema virtual dot get, and the get will return a take a function as one of its parameters, and in the parameter of this function will actually return our full name. So, and whatever is returned on this function is whatever this gets will return. So this dot first name plus, and let's make it all pretty like last time, this dot last name. And this is our getter. If we do our setter, let's bit schema virtual dot set function. It'll also take a function, and this time it'll take an argument name, let's call it, and let's call this split, because right now we're taking in a name and we want to actually split this so we can set our first and last name. So let's split this on a space, and this will just give us, say I change my name to, or keep the name James Wang, it'll turn it into James and Wang. Say name is James Wang as one line, this will just turn it into James Wang as an array. So we want to make this dot first name equal to splits 0, this dot last name equal to splits 1. Cool. So let's see this in action, shall we? If I were to go to this now and were to get bit.fullname with James, well, we should be trying to get the same thing with James Wang entirely. So let's see if this works. Cool. And this, now we also have James Wang displayed in the front. Now, if I wanted to use the setter method for, let's say, bit.fullname is equal to James, let's do James Kardashian, because I want to be a Kardashian. That's what I want to be when I grow up. And let's display it like here. Cool. But now if I want to see bit.last name, just my last name, what happens? And I've now changed my last name inside this bit. What's important to know that this doesn't reflect what's happening into the database. This is only on our end of how we want to interpret and change something that's not persistent. And that's key to this. It's not persistent. So let's go back and understand why we want a bit schema options. So how right now when we're displaying normally just our bits, notice how it is a JSON file, a JSON object, right? And with this JSON object that's how it is returned from bits. And that's why we have this options with this schema. So there's an option with this schema object called toJSON, in which takes in another argument, another object that is called virtuals. And with virtuals being true now, we can display more options than what's previously. So with James here, now if I were to refresh the page, my full name is now on here. It is acting as if in our schema, we have a full name in our object string, but without having clunkiness of using first name and last name and putting them in our database. Because it's always a bad habit or a bad practice to repeat data. That's why we never want to say full name, but instead use the data we get back from the database first name and last name. So cool. Now let's, before we end this, I want you to see it's in action with all. So now with all the bits, you can now see a full name being displayed with Andre, me, Krish, and Vishal, Ria, etc. And what virtuals, so the purpose of virtuals is to have non-persistent data inside the data that doesn't affect the database, but it allows us to display something that is not persistent.